Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about Scream, the very first movie that came out in 1996. This movie means a lot to me. And also it means a lot to so many other people. It was very influential in reviving the horror slasher like genre. After about like a decade or so, horror movies and slasher movies kind of just went dead. No puns intended. And so for the longest time, nobody was really interested in them. Then I forget exactly what happened. I think Wes Craven wanted to do like a comedy movie or something like that, and they told him, "All right, fine, but in order to do that, you have to make like another horror movie or something like that," was something he didn't really want to do. And I don't know if it was Scream or something different, so I might get that part wrong. But I do know that, yeah, he wanted to get away from horror because he's done it like so many times in like the 80s and 70s and stuff, and he wanted to do something different. But the studio pretty much told him, look, you make one more slasher, and then we'll let you do your comedy thing. Well, if it was Scream, my God, thank you. So Scream was directed by the late, great Wes Craven, and it was written by Kevin Williamson. Now, what's really interesting is that everything that went into production of this movie almost really didn't always happen. See, this was based off real life killings of the Gainesville Ripper. He heard about this. He went to the town in which it was based off of. I think he said he got like in a hotel or something like that, and he stayed there and he did as much research as he could before he wrote the script for Light Scream. And even that, when they did go into production, the city that they were supposed to film in, they didn't want them there and stuff. And not only that, but they had a hard time trying to get people from the news media to actually like cameo in the movie to be like real news reporter people. They didn't want to be associated with a slasher movie where teens get killed. So, but then once the movie became such a hit, then they started appearing in all the sequels and stuff. And so, like, I remember when I watched this movie, I remember the only person I knew was like Courtney Cox from Friends. I knew David Arquette from the first and only Buffy movie from back in like the early 90s. And I remember, of course, Neve Campbell from Party of Five. So I was so excited like to see her. And it was so cool because I didn't even know Neve Campbell was in. Like, cool, the lady from Friends. And so back then, when Scream kicked off the whole like slasher craze, big name stars like they started making like copycat type movies. Some of those copycat movies I actually own. And then so like they started getting these big name stars for their slasher and horror movies. And because they were so popular at that time, once they started to fizzle out around the 2000s, that's when things started to hit the like direct to DVD sequel. And then most of the time, like even if it was to come into a theater, they lost their star power. Basically, it was like up and coming like celebs trying to make a name for themselves, who really couldn't act that well, or people you saw like in TV who's trying to like get in on it. So the huge star power was like gone for like so many years in the horror movie era. But the horror movie thing is still going on to this day. It fizzled out a couple of years from here and there, but it comes back. But yeah, this movie restarted the slasher craze. It restarted the horror movie craze. It restarted teen drama movies. It restarted teen comedy movies. And it restarted spoofs. Because those things had all like died out after a while. And it all started all because of this one awesome movie. And Scream was so huge that it reinvigorated a lot of these stars' careers that was in it. And a lot of them has a lot of success after a while. And some have now just fizzled out. And I remember like Matthew Lillard when he played like Stu, that's all people could think of. It took him so long to like push that aside. He did other movies, but nobody cared. And so like when he started playing Shaggy in Scooby Doo, That's when people stopped looking at him as Stu and now sees him as Shaggy. And he was so happy. But yes, this movie, like, it was the first slasher movie I had ever saw because I wasn't allowed to watch that stuff growing up. And I took a chance. I just bought it on like VHS at the time. I'm not sure why I did. Like, I'm really not sure. I think I was in the store with my mom, and then it's just like I wanted to buy that. Maybe because I saw Neve Campbell in it, and I recognized her and stuff. And so after watching this movie and falling in love with it, my Halloween costume since that day, back when I was in high school, has always been Ghostface. He's very iconic, you know. He's one of the most iconic, like, well, I guess I can say it because I guess both male and female. But yeah, but it's one of the most iconic killers, like in all slasher horror, you know. And I remember that also started the craze of like cell phones and ID caller. I remember like when I had a cell phone for the first time, I was so happy and excited to myself. Oh my god, I have something that's been in like in the Scream movies. And, like, you know how like a kid when they watch their favorite thing, they hold like their stuffed animal or toy that's in the like show or movie they're watching. Like a fool, man. I did that with the cell phone. I'm like holding it in my hand, and when they will dial a number, I'll dial a number, stuff like that. Like that's just how like huge this movie was, you know. And so, like, it spawned a TV series many years later. The TV series a bit diversive. At first I was feeling it, then I wasn't, and then I'm just like, then I really wasn't. And so I don't know how I truly feel about it. I need to rewatch it just to get like a clear head of it. Because I remember I thought it was pretty cool. Because, I was coming off of Pretty Little Liars because I was on at the time. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm used to that formula. And then that's the same formula that was in the Scream TV show. But then after a while, I realized something. This is just a teen drama that just happened to have a slasher in it. And nobody's really dying of significance. Like the main cast is still alive. And it's a huge main cast. And so, I will get into that one day later. But Scream. So, like, yeah, it revolves around like these group of kids. And for the most part, only 3 of them are like, well, actually 4 of them. Well, not okay, one doc. It's okay, but 3 of them are really into like horror movies. That's literally all they talk about. And so the movie, what's right ironic is that the second person to die in this movie, the first person to die is just this guy who happens to be the boyfriend of the girl that the killer is chasing. And so she starts off the movie, and it's a really interesting phone call. She's just flirting back with like the killer, but she don't know it's the killer. And he reveals that he can see her and stuff. This freaks her out. What's ironic about this is that she dies in this movie in a very horrifying kind of way. And what's even more ironic is that she's played by a huge big name actress, Drew Barrymore, who was big in the E.T. movies and all these other movies. She was a child actress and stuff. And so they wanted her to play the lead, but she said no, she just didn't want to like do that. She wanted like a smaller role, and she wanted to die like really early on. And they argue back and forth about that because they like, we can't kill you off that early. You're too like famous. But she told them the reasons why and why it would be beneficial for the movie. And since then, Scream has always done that. They've always killed off a big name actress in the beginning of their movies who was like big, who was really big back in the day. Ever since Scream 4, okay, and Scream 5, the actresses are big. They're just not that big. They're like TV big. They're recognized on TV. But they're not like huge big like in movies like they were in the first 3 movies. And so like and even the TV shows follow that thing, even though those people weren't that big. One was like a former Disney Channel star who's just, I don't know, just fell off the rocker, and the other one is, she's not really famous. She's just like adopted. She's like the child of like a famous like singer, and that's it. And so Yeah, it follows these group of kids. And then I remember when I used to watch this movie. Yeah, this isn't gonna be like my typical review. When it comes to movies, I don't feel like going scene to scene to scene to scene because movies take that long. So when I give like the movie review, it's just like the gist and how I feel about it and what went on in production, stuff like that. Like, what's interesting is you can always like I thought for sure Billy was gonna be the killer just because of how sketchy he looked. Like he looked creepy and stuff. And so like then when it was revealed that he was locked up and the killer is still calling, it's like, oh okay, well I guess he's not the killer. Then at the party, it's like he gets stabbed over and over, and they're like, okay, well, he can't be the killer. Then it revealed he is the killer along with somebody else. I'm just like, dude, that's the total misdirection and huge twist, and I appreciate that so much. And I remember when I used to watch this movie, they had a hard time trying to get an R rating because they had to have people actually watch this, but they didn't want that. They wanted the higher rating where most people couldn't see it because it's so gruesome and stuff. So they had to fight back and forth with like the rating people, and so like or the censorship people, and so like I remember this to be a really gross scene. I used to always turn my head when I used to watch it on VHS. It was the scene where let's see, what is her name, Casey Becker and Stephen Orms or something like that. I think his name is her boyfriend. He gets gutted and his guts literally fall out his stomach. That was one of the grossest, nastiest scenes ever. I used to always turn my head from that. Then when I bought it on DVD, I bought the 3-pack DVD with the trilogy in it. They took that out. I'm just like, whoa, where is that at? And it pisses me off they took that off because like I want this movie to stay intact. You know what I'm saying? And not only did they take that out, they took one of my favorite scenes out when Billy and Stu are like going crazy at each other, revealing that they're the killer, and they're like stabbing each other over and over. They took that part out. That was one of the biggest highlights of the movie to show just how deranged these two teen killers are. And they took that out. And I don't understand why they took that out of the DVD. I'm still trying to look for the original version on DVD, but it's really hard to find. But after like the killing of like the couple in the beginning, you know, the town quickly finds out, and then so like it gets put all around the news media. And you gotta remember, the internet wasn't the way it was back in the day, so people had to actually watch like the news and stuff like that. And they had like little chats like AOL chat and Yahoo chats and stuff. And so you know, it revolves around a girl named Sydney Prescott. She is our final girl. She is our hero of this movie. And she has a deranged boyfriend named Billy. We don't really know how deranged he is, but he's constantly talking about horror movies and comparing his life to one, and it's just like weird. But he basically just wants to get in her pants, and she's the virgin who will not let him. So after all the like killing happened in the beginning of the movie, then you know the news and the cops are all at the school, and they want to investigate every single last student because they think one of the students did it. And this is when we meet our group of friends. We have Tatum, who is played by an actress I cannot stand. And she is Sydney's best friend. She is rude to every single last person in the movie except for Sydney. That's kind of ironic. Most movies are like that, like teen dramas. You'll have like the mean girl and a group of all these friends, and she's rude to everybody in the group except for the main girl of the movie. That's how Sugar and Spice was. And so, like, her brother, she's dating Stu. And her brother is Dewey. He's like a detective, not detective, he's a deputy, a sheriff's deputy and stuff. And he is literally like dumb as rocks. He is the comedic relief, well, one of the comedic reliefs of this movie. There are lots of comedic reliefs in this movie. I will say one thing that's really refreshing is that they managed to beautifully merge both humor and like horror in the same movie with drama and suspense. The characters that are comedic, they are over the top, but it's all right because they're actually funny and stuff. And so like, you know, the thing about her is that when she comes home, like, you know, she's just like kind of like by herself. Her dad's always away at business, and she is kind of concerned and worried because the killing of that couple is very reminiscent of the killing of her mom that happened like over a decade ago. And so, not even a decade ago, it was a couple of years back, to tell you the truth. And so, like, because of that, she's not like really a town outcast, but some people do look at her differently, you know. And one person who hounds her is Gail Weathers, who's like the news lady reporter. And she's constantly hounding her because Gail just wants that big scoop. She wants to make it big and get away from this small town. She doesn't like the town of Willsboro. Like she just wants to make it like huge, you know. And Gail is a very cranky, mean woman. Oh my God, I could not believe Courtney Cox played that mean of a character because Monica was not like that on Friends. So, you know, um, Sydney at some point gets the call from the killer. And one of the cool things about this movie is just the interaction between like the caller and one of the teens. Like the stuff he says on the phone is just so interesting and his voice is so captivating. Like it's always like surprise Sydney. And it's just like what's your favorite scary movie? And it's just like the dude who voiced him, who voiced Ghostface. What's ironic is they didn't want him to. The production people did not want him to meet the cast on set. They wanted to keep it a mystery to them so it can feel more eerie and like scary. So throughout the whole movie, he never got to meet them until like the very end of like production wrap up and stuff. So of course the killer chases her all around the house, and she doesn't run out the front door. She always run like the girl always runs upstairs for some reason. But the killer is unable to get to her, and then all of a sudden, her boyfriend just shows up in through the window, and his cell phone drops. This makes her suspicious because the killer called from an actual cell phone. Cell phones were very rare at that time. People didn't, so like you know, so she assumed that it had to be him. So he gets arrested because of that. And so, like, as all this is going on, the killer is constantly stalking her. He kind of chilled with the killings for like a good chunk of the movie, and we get like a lot of explanation as to why this might be going on. There's a lot of backstory that goes on with Sydney's mother. You know what's ironic is that one comparison between the movie and the show is that the show has all these characters and it tries to go into everybody's backstory. And then it tries to go into this whole Brandon James backstory. But in the movie, it's not like that. In the movie, you have a group of people. You barely know anything about them. They give you the gist of what a person is about, and that's all you need. Even Sydney, the hero, the final girl of the movie, we don't know much of anything about. In all 5 movies, we barely know anything about her. We know more about her mom than we know about her. When it comes to Sydney, we just know she's a girl with a dead mom and that she has a boyfriend for a killer. She goes to college and she becomes paranoid while in college. And then when she gets out of college in the 3rd movie, she's super paranoid, but she lives by herself and nobody knows who she is. And she carries a gun now. Then she dates a cop at the end of the movie. In the 4th movie, the cop is nowhere near to be found, so we assume they've broken up. And then now, instead of hiding from everybody, she's out in the open writing books about her experiences. And then next thing you know, in the 5th movie, maybe the cop will show up, but I could have sworn I saw her jogging with a stroller. So now she probably has a kid. And that's so crazy because we don't know much about her. We know the moment you bring up her mom in a nasty way, she's ready to fight you like Harry Potter. And the thing about Sydney's mother is that she was known as kind of like the town whore. She just slept around, cheated on her husband. And then she messed around with this one teenage guy named Cotton Weary. And supposedly he raped and killed her. And so he's in jail. He's in a prison sentence because of that. They don't really say his age because you never know how old Cotton is. See, here's the strange thing about Cotton. They say he was underage when he messed around with Maureen Prescott, which is Sydney's mother. And when he was underage, he like did this and then he went to prison for it. And so it's kind of like, okay, when we see him in the second movie, he doesn't look like a teen. He looks like an adult. So he looks like he's probably around Sydney and them age and stuff. But he looks too old in the second movie. But then he really looks old in like the third movie. So they never really specified like how old he is. But he has been wanted for like, the assault and murder of like Marine. But then when the killing started again, this makes Gale think that, oh, the wrong person has been identified. He was identified by Sydney because he saw him come out like her house and stuff. And he was, and not only that, but something else. Something about his shirt was left at the crime scene or something like that. So they assumed it was him. But now Sydney's not even sure herself, especially after this attack and everything. So, like I said before, throughout the entire movie, the killings for the most part just stop. And it's just a lot of character like build up and intense of like what's going on in Sydney and this killer. So she's terrified, she's horrified. And so like her father is out of town. They think he might be a suspect. They have no idea who this killer might be. So then, she gets attacked at school after these girls make fun of her and her mom, calling her like a slut and like a whore and stuff like that. And so Sydney, she has to deal with all this like drama. Like she's just a regular, Sydney's just a regular normal girl who mom screwed up her life because of her infidelity. And people look down on Sydney because of that. They think that, oh, the apple falls not that far from the tree type thing. And then now there's a killer chasing her of all things. And, so school gets canceled because she gets attacked in the bathroom by the killer. And so after that, everybody's decided there's a curfew in town. Stu wants to have like a party. And so like, as they're like getting stuff ready for the party, the killer is stalking them. Like the killer is always around town and nobody can ever see this person like creeping up behind them and stuff. And so like there was one point where I thought the killer might actually be like a ghost instead of like, and because like in the bathroom scene, the way the foot comes down and the cloak comes down, it seemed very like ghost-like and stuff. And so like when they're at the party and everything, they're watching horror movies because these kids just love horror movies. And like I said before, so Stu's there, they're talking about horror movie crap. Randy is there. Randy is comedic relief also, and he's obsessed with horror movies. So it's kind of like, okay, we got three people that are potential killers. One we know for a fact we think is not the killer because like he was locked up and stuff when all this crazy stuff was going on. So what could be the other two? And so like the cool thing about Randy, he explains the rules of a horror movie because this movie is very meta and stuff. And I never knew the rules of a horror movie from the other like movie franchises and stuff. And so as this is all going on now, the killings are going to start. This is the climax of the movie. The principal was like the next person to die at the school for unknown reasons, to tell you the truth. I think, see what happened was there was a person dressed up as Ghostface running around the school trying to scare Sydney. This pissed the principal off and it suspended the friends of like the killer. So that's probably why they killed the principal and stuff. And so at the party, everybody's partying, like all this other stuff. And the first person to go is Tatum. She's down in like the garage and she's getting beer. And the killer comes in, kills her, hangs her on the like garage door because she tries to escape through the doggy door like an idiot. And so, it's funny because the actress mirrors her dumb character. So nobody could hear that in the garage because the movie and the music is going on too loud. Then after a while, like it's been reported that the principal has been hung. So a couple of the students leave. Then next thing you know, the party starts to die out and then everybody leaves. While this is going on, Sydney has finally decided to give herself to like Billy and everything. So next thing you know, here comes all the slashing and gashing. And Ghostface is just going on a killer spree. But it's not that many people in the house. He's chasing after Sydney for the most part, because everybody has now left. Tatum is now dead. Stu is nowhere to be found. Before we see Billy get stabbed over and over by the killer, so we assume he's dead. So after a huge chase sequence like happens, she starts to run back towards the house, and she like gets into like a car. Well, Gail's getting chased as well. Her cameraman neck gets slashed. She gets in a car accident because she's spying on like the party and everything. And this is another part where I thought like Ghostface might be like real ghost, because he was unlocking the doors to the car and I didn't know how. And so when she runs back to the house, she's running, and there is like, she has the cop gun or something like that thing, and she runs and we see Randy with his leg cut. See, before, Randy was just watching the movie and just kind of being like delirious drunk, and then next thing you know, the killer comes up behind him until he hears Sydney scream outside. We didn't know what happened to Randy, and then we see like, you know, his leg got cut. Dewey gets stabbed in the back when he goes into the house to investigate. So when Sydney goes to like the house, Randy is there talking about, we need to get up out of here, there's a killer loose. She thinks it's him. Then Stu comes around the corner acting freaky weird. So I'm like, oh, okay, it has to be Stu. Like, he's just acting weird and he's overselling it. So she has a gun pointing at both of them, but she don't know who's like the killer. She's so freaked out, she keeps both of them outside and locks them outside. Then they're banging on the door. And it's like, what is going on? Then all of a sudden, Billy like comes down with stab wounds and he falls down like the stairs. He asks for the gun. He opens it up. He lets Randy in. He shoots Randy. It's revealed now he is the killer. Stu comes around the corner in the house. Sydney is like, Stu, you have to help me. He takes out the voice box and he's all like, surprise, Sydney. So he is the second killer. And this was the twist that nobody really saw coming. The killer had an accomplice. There were two killers. They go on this huge monologue type thing of like why they did what they did, mostly Billy. And the reason why we find out why Billy and Stu are the killers, mainly Billy, is because of Sydney's mom. See, Billy's dad was banging Sydney's mom. Billy's mom found out. She got so pissed that she abandoned her family and never came back. This screwed up Billy in the head. And so he decided he was going to get revenge. It was never Cotton Weary. He never raped her. They just had like regular sex. And then they framed him for the murder and they killed Maureen Prescott. And then they went on a killing spree many years later to try to get Sydney all of a sudden. And so it's never revealed why he waited so long and why he wanted to kill Sydney, but it was just because we find out later in the third movie. So a huge like reveal happened. The both boys, they're all like, you know, we're gonna get away with this, we're gonna stab each other, make it look like the killer came after us, but we survived and everybody else is dead. We're gonna pin it on your father. It was insane. I was like, my God. So then, you know, the chase happens inside the house. She kills both the killers. She shoots one of them dead. She kills Stu in a very funny way by throwing a TV on top of him. You know, electrocutes him. And so then, like, you know, it's Gail, it's Randy, and it's Sydney. And then, like I said, she shoots the killer. Then, you know, Gail's kind of like reporting it outside, and Dewey's alive. And so the he's in the ambulance, and it's just, it ends in this really mysterious, cool kind of way as it's zooming out of like the farmhouse and stuff. And then we find out in the third movie why all this took place. Now that part I kind of don't like. I don't like that this was all set up from another person, and the whole real motivation of why Billy and Stu did what they did is because of the influence of somebody else who told them to do it. This is why the people don't like the third movie. I'll get into that later. But yeah, Scream is a very good movie. The setting in the small town, the color palette that's dingy, like, you know, the type of material they use for like the blood and everything. And it's like, what's so interesting, like I said before, we don't know much about these characters. And that's a great thing. It's just an hour and 30-minute movie. we don't have time to like figure out everybody's backstory. And that's one thing the TV show kind of messed up on. The TV show was too long. They didn't kill off the main cast. They went to everybody's backstory and drama, and it was just too much. They wanted us to like the cast, but they didn't get rid of the cast for us to feel like some depth to it, But the movie is so great. That wasn't that spooky. All right, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.